Josue, Lisa can't unmute.
Lisa, you should be able to unmute now. You're co-host.
Okay. I have been told that we are live, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And Judy, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Hausch.
I'm here.
McQueen. Here. Stokes.
Here.
Krieger.
Here.
Curlis.
Here.
Also present are Denise Swinger, Planning and Zoning Administrator, Johnny Burns, Public Works Director, Police Chief Carlson is or will be joining us, Finance Director Dylan, Brianne Parcels, Village Solicitor, and Village Manager Josue Salmarón.
All right, sweet. So I don't think we have any swearing-ins, but as we roll into announcements, I want to welcome Paige Burge, who I understand is now a sergeant for the police team. And Josue, I don't know if you want to say anything more about Paige.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I appreciate the introduction. We are excited to announce that after an extensive process, we have made a promotion for the sergeant role. As you know, Naomi Watson, our former sergeant, served 14 years in the village. So there are big shoes to fill, but we're fully confident that Paige would meet all the expectations and will exceed in her new role as sergeant. She's done great work around community engagement, working with children. She was also the organizer for the Touch a Truck that we recently had. So a lot of happy kids, happy constituents. So we're excited to welcome Paige in this new role as sergeant. So thank you for the introduction, Brian.
All right, thank you. And Touch a Truck was awesome. And I think I'm going to roll into, I know we have Marty Heidi here representing Representative Mike Turner. Marty, let's hear what we've got around, I think, benefits related to COVID. All right, let's make sure we get Marty off mute.
Okay, I think,
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's great to be, I was going to say it's great to be out and about, but then we kind of got brought back a little bit. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to join tonight's meeting. This is a public service announcement from the federal government that passed the American Rescue Plan in December of 2020. And part of that American Rescue Plan included COVID-19 funeral reimbursement program. And I sent along a flyer to Judy, and it has the basic information, the number that you call. And this is available to everyone. There's no income determination. It's the eligible determinations are not governed by states. They're governed by when the applicant got their application submitted. And it starts by calling the number, FEMA number, and starting the application process. So there's no form, you just call them and they tell you what you need to gather. But on the form that I sent out, it basically lists all the documents that you need. And this is some serious stuff because you can get reimbursed up to $9,000. So this will cover a lot of the funeral expenses. And this was put into place so that those people who lost loved ones, and I know it's a rather dire topic, but we still would like to get the word out to people that if you know someone, or if you've experienced a close family member or friend who's passed away, to let their family know that they can apply through the FEMA contact assistance line. There's a line for frequently asked questions. And I will tell you that 2 weeks ago, we were approaching 888 million. Now we're at 1 billion. that's already been dispersed to a total of 155,000 people. Ohio itself has taken in 8,700 applications, and 5,000 of those have been approved to a total of $37 million. So this is, Congressman Turner has sent out to funeral homes, to churches. We need to get the word out to the public. Again, this is open to anyone that applies, that has paid for a funeral and wants to be reimbursed. The death certificate needs to say COVID, but as you recall, in January of 2020 up till about May of 2020, COVID wasn't nearly as identifiable on the death certificate. And so you can get the medical examiner to review the death certificate to determine if COVID was the cause, and they'll provide a letter. And that's how you demonstrate that the cause of death was COVID. So again, any questions, let me know. We just need to get the word out.
We appreciate that, Marty. And I want to also say on a different note, thank you for your support with our RAISE grant. And we really appreciate how you got in there right away. And thank you for paying attention to our community. So,
you're welcome.
All right.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Does anyone have any questions for Marty?
Yeah, Marty, a lot of our citizens try to see Mike Turner and they're never able to do so. Can you kind of help them know the best way to see him personally?
Well, I can't speak to that because I'm not his scheduler, but I would be happy to. We have Facebook, we have internet. I mean, it's not personal, as you said, but we do have several ways to contact Congressman Turner. If you have any questions or issues, you can call the office. We are there all the time and available. But I can certainly pass along your concerns, but I cannot guarantee that that's going to generate a meeting. But that has been brought up, and he's aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. So we're going to move into, I know Piper is here, and I think not only is Piper going to introduce herself, but let us know about some upcoming meeting. So Piper.
All right, can you hear me? Great. Hi there, I'm Piper Fernway. I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself to those members of council that I haven't met yet, and to the Yellow Springs community as a whole. I'm the consultant the village recently contracted with to coordinate the Yellow Springs Climate Action and Sustainability Plan through the end of this year. So as you all know, Yellow Springs has an impressive history of supporting the environment, with this council passing resolutions and funding feasibility studies, but there's also the plethora of work done by local organizations and passionate residents on conservation and other sustainability initiatives. The village was close to having a cohesive climate action plan back in 2015 with the Environmental Commission's quarterly report on climate change and the activities of the Yellow Springs Resilience Network. So I'm not here to start this work from scratch. A lot of it's been done already. So I'm here rather to tie all of these efforts, past and present, together under one umbrella and create a cohesive structure so we can address the climate crisis as a community going forward. So what I'll be doing over the next few months is conducting a community-based plan. So first and foremost, I'm here to invite any resident who's interested to participate to do so. You're very much invited to take part in these climate action and sustainability planning efforts. And the first way you can do that is we will be hosting a community kickoff meeting next week, Monday. So Monday, August 23rd, we'll be having a meeting from 1 to 2:30 p.m. in person, social distanced on the lawn of the John Bryan Center, or 6:30 to 8 p.m. via Zoom that evening. Same meeting. Don't feel like you have to come to both. Just wanted to give people the opportunity to do that. So, to give people a sneak peek, we've organized the work into 7 different domains. There will be subcommittees that residents can join for each of the domains: energy, transportation, buildings, native habitat, water, local food, and waste reduction. And then there will be a steering committee made up of leaders from past efforts, as well as key stakeholders and representatives from each domain. So this committee will ensure that this iteration of climate action planning is in line with past efforts, and that planning is done balancing other community priorities like equity in the economy. So to learn more about the plan and how to get involved, look out for 2 articles in the Yellow Springs News this week. In there's a link to a website where we'll be posting information and updates about the climate action and sustainability plan, or you can email me at sustainableyellowsprings@gmail.com. So thank you for the opportunity to join the meeting tonight and make this announcement, and the opportunity to participate in this work with the village. I really look forward to working with the Yellow Springs community, and I hope to see you at the community meeting next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Piper. I've got to say, it is so important that the village really, focus on our climate mitigation aspects. And so love that we're doing this. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I also believe Emily Seibel is on the horn to let us know about a really exciting event happening on the 25th. Emily.
Hi, thank you, Brian. I'm Emily Seibel, Executive Director of Yellow Springs Home Inc. And we invite all of Village Council, all of Village staff, and all fully vaccinated community members to attend the Glen Cottages Community Celebration, which is being held next Wednesday, August 25th, from 4 to 7 p.m. at 1133 Xenia Avenue along Route 68. Parking will be available off-site behind the Miami Township Fire Rescue Department. Please follow the signs and find the parking attendant. The program itself will take place at 5:30 p.m. And I want to personally invite any members of council who wish to speak at the event. Just reach out and let me know beforehand. We welcome your voices, and we truly, truly, truly appreciate your investment in the project. And you'll hear more about it at the event. So please join us as we celebrate with refreshments, small group tours with masks, and a brief program including speakers, a ribbon cutting ceremony. We'll also have a couple of surprise dedications, some interactive activities, and more. Appetizers are being provided by the Wheat Penny Oven and Bar, and we will have complimentary adult beverages. And I do want to just reiterate that the event will follow all of the CDC, state, and local COVID-19 guidelines, including masking and social distancing. Fully vaccinated community members are welcome to attend and are asked to wear masks and practice social distancing. Tours of the units due to COVID-19 safety will be by RSVP only. And so I just want to make sure folks know that if you want to tour the inside of the homes, which obviously you hopefully want to do that because that's the fun part, will be by RSVP only. And so you have to visit the Home Inc. Website at yshome.org, or visit us on Facebook to get more information about the event, including the RSVP link that you can click on to take a tour. So this is very exciting. This is years in the making, and we want you to come out and celebrate this really landmark project with us. So thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Emily. I will just say my preview was amazing. I am so excited about this project, and I encourage everyone to join. It's this is a replicable model that I really see making a difference in the village, and appreciate Home Inc. Do we have, oh, I think, did I have one other?
Mary Ann's got her hand raised.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
I would like to make two announcements, and one actually has to do with Home Inc. And I wanted to pull it out of the communications because I thought it was important that Home Inc. has resources for renters regarding eviction issues, and you can reach their Facebook page for those resources. I don't know if Emily wants to say anything more about that, but I think that's important. I also wanted to let people know that the nonprofit organization, the Little Miami Watershed Network, which is several years old, is going to be hiring a part-time director. And anyone who loves the Little Miami River or the corridor, who's interested in the environment and would like to put their hat in the ring for that position, I have the information about that and they can contact me.
All right, thanks, Mary Ann. Any other announcements? Laura?
There's a jail and bail community conversation on Zoom tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. This is in conjunction with our friends in Fairborn, and it's sponsored by the Greene County Citizens Coalition for Compassionate Justice, the ACLU, and the Pretrial Justice Institute. For those of you who haven't heard, there will be a 0.25% sales tax levy on the ballot this fall that the Greene County Commissioners put on. So this is a public information and listening session on issues around that. Thank you. And the clerk has the Zoom link. So if you want to Zoom in at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening, just email Judy Kintner. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Laura. A couple other things I want to highlight. I have loved seeing our police team on bikes riding around, and I know that the community is appreciating that interaction. So thank you so much. The other thing I wanted to highlight is the fact that we are really appreciative of the Touch a Truck and some of the other activities that have been going on that have really engaged the community. I know that that has been really well received. And do we have any other announcements before we move on? Okay. So I think we are going to move into the consent agenda, which are the minutes from our meeting way back in July. And Judy, if you want to, well, actually, let's go ahead and do a motion on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Judy, let's call the roll.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, review of the agenda. Anything we need to add, subtract, or modify?
Brian, I'd like to ask to add an executive session, which will be maybe about 15 minutes for the purpose of discussion of the appointment and employment of a village official.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else? Okay, then Mary Ann, let's hear about our myriad of petitions and communications.
Yes, we had a number of communications regarding appreciating and wanting a mask requirement downtown, and in particular inside businesses. So they are from Molly Lundy, Jamie Sharp, Marsha Walgren, Lindsay Burke, Corey Whitaker, Matt Kirk, Anna Burke and Ryan Stinson, from the Yellow Springs Pottery Organization. Most all of these people are from downtown businesses as well, and Pan Rich. Then Catherine Vanderheiden had a letter that raised a number of issues in the village, including Mills Lawn, green space, and other issues. Sarah Amend had a concern about the potential for the Ober development on active transportation on Spillane Road. Joseph Amend had a concern about potential pesticides on that property. The mayor's clerk had the mayor's court statistics. Alex Melamed had an article that he had written with residential zoning change suggestions. Mitzi Miller had a letter with concern about sidewalk obstructions. Alex Scott had a fair amount of information about the inclusive and resilient Yellow Springs, both what they've been doing and what they plan on doing. Emily Seibel had the two pieces of information that have already been discussed. Kevin Stokes submitted an email supporting the ordinance that we will be hopefully passing regarding not discrimination on income for source of rent. And Marty Hyde made the presentation with the funeral assistants. Brian Hausch had information about external noise, as well as some articles on COVID transmission. And Matt Ruska had a letter, and there was an exchange between him and our solicitor regarding what might or might not constitute a conflict of interest for a commission or board member. I think that's it.
All right, thanks, Marianne. As a side note, I guess, a little bit, surprised about some of the sort of, I guess, reactionary input that we've gotten, because I think this council is open to, thinking about zoning and other issues. And I think we're going to talk more about this, but, I guess it's always important for me to just kind of highlight that I think we're all aware of some of the things that we can certainly change. And, I'd encourage everyone to think about approaching these issues in a more rational way. With that, let's go ahead and move into legislation. And I believe our first ordinance is 2021-25. And Judy, we can read that by title only.
All right, this is establishing a fee schedule for residential and commercial building permits.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Host White.
Hey, Brian, thank you. This is, if you recall, I have a presentation for this. If you recall, this is for one of the steps required for us to move forward with the building department. There are two action items that we said we needed recently at our last presentation, and that is establishing a fee schedule and contracting the services for building department. So I have a quick presentation just to remind folks on what is it that we're talking about here. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I'll breeze through the general presentation and get to your questions. So just to remind everyone, we had a building back in 1976, a building department back in 1976. Along the way, we decided to outsource all the building department services to Greene County. What the current challenge we're having with Greene County is long delays in the permitting process through Greene County, poor engagement and feedback from county staff. This ultimately restricts and discourages economic development, of which we have major economic development projects underway. Planning Commission recently approved the old schoolhouse development for WYSO. We've got the Cresco Labs, and there's numerous other projects that we are working on. And I think having a streamlined building department process is essential to economic development. What's the solution to this? Well, have our own certified building department, which council has approved establishing a building department for both residential and commercial plan review and inspection. So this will improve the permitting process for residents and businesses. As we initially proposed, we are not in a position to take on additional staff. And so the proposed structure by outsourcing it, and we have Andrew McKinsey, who's representing National Inspection Corporation here joining us tonight, and he can speak about NIC, the services, and how the program will work. And I have a couple slides that I'll get into detail about the workflow and what does it mean for customers. Essentially, this partnership and with the updated fee schedule will help us deliver a more effective building department, which is essential to economic development. What are the numbers? How much volume are we talking about? These are the permit volumes and amounts that we have seen over the last, 8 years. So from a revenues perspective, we're looking at somewhere between 30 and 40,000. On volume, they vary between 40 and 80 total building permits. There are electrical permits. There's a lot of variation in the numbers. But overall, we're talking about somewhere between 150 and 200 permits. In 2019, it was the year with the highest number of permits at 318 permits, but not necessarily the highest grossing year for fees collection. That year, the year that we collected the most fees would have been 2018. And that was a total of 193 permits. So we expect a volume of somewhere 150 to 200 per year. Given that we're so far in the year, we'll probably, maybe we'll be under 100. But I don't see us exceeding 100 permits in what's remaining of the year. Is this possible? We mentioned the example of West Jefferson. West Jefferson has a population similar to us, 4,200. And that department, that village serves 59,610 residents. They're serving not only West Jefferson, but Plain City, Mount Sterling, City of London, and Madison County residential services with an increasing base. So there are communities that are doing this, and they're doing it to additional municipalities. We have decided that our best move is to look for a partner, develop a partnership for the building official, which we have Andrew McKinsey with NIC joining us tonight. So we've done that. We've got a partnership, and there's a contract that we're proposing before council. The next steps would have been to pass ordinances for residential and plan review, which council has already done. Apply for certification from the state, and that's in progress. We've had several conversations and meetings with the state, the Ohio Building Standards Board, and they're eager to receive our application. Next step will be setting the permit fee schedule, which is your first hearing tonight on this ordinance, and that's in progress. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a separate slide or in a moment. We also want to implement technology for permit management. As you know, we invested a lot of human capital and resources into the iWorks technology, and that includes a permitting module and permitting process where we have that technology, and we have a partner that's willing to work with us on our technology so that they're inputting and entering data into the iWorks system. So as plans are reviewed and approved and permits issue, it will all be tracked in the iWorks system, including fees calculations and whatnot. So it's a more transparent and streamlined process. So what is next? Well, you've got in a future agenda item, you have the NIC contract before you. This will provide, the NIC will provide the building services on behalf of the village. Our contract includes a commitment to deliver plan reviews within 5 and 7 days of submission. That is a great timeline compared to what we're currently seeing in the county. NIC will issue permits to the staff via the platform, and the staff will issue it to the customer. So essentially, what the customer will see will be the face of it. Folks can drop off their application here, then it goes into the workflow on an online platform. It'll be uploaded into a secure share file where NIC will do the plan review and schedule their inspections, and they'll directly follow up with the customers there. Other piece that we've been able to negotiate in this contract is that NIC will provide orientation and technical assistance to customers or building regulations. So if someone has questions about how to build a deck or how to go about building a deck, they can pick up the phone, call our main line here, and as they go through the phone tree, if they want the building department, like they do when they, option number 1, contact the village manager, option 2, planning office. Most people hit number 1, but if they go further down the phone tree, they will have an option for building department. And when they hit that number, it's going to ring at NIC, and a person will pick up the phone there. They'll know it's from the village, and they can answer questions. They will answer questions such as, what's the status of my permit, or I'm interested in building a deck, or whatever it is they're interested in building, and they'll be provided with an orientation on that matter. So how will the submissions work? I already touched a bit on this, but folks will come to our office, submit their application and fee here at the window. Staff will scan them into a secure drive where NIC will automatically have access to them, and we'll also have an iWorks integration. Upon issuance of the permits by NIC, staff will provide permits to the customer. Eventually, in the near future, we will be at a point where the customer could directly submit a permit on the iWorks system. They can upload their plans from the comfort of their office or home, and the NIC team will get an email or a notice that a new submission has been done, and so they'll know to start the process. All right, so on fees, let me end my screen sharing here because I have great news to share on the fee schedule. I think one of the concerns is this going to cost us more? If so, how much? And I think you heard from several business owners and contractors that if it meant a streamlined process, they are happy to pay extra if it meant better service and faster turnaround time. Well, we've got some exciting news here because in speaking with the NIC team, we did a cost evaluation and we did a fees comparison across Greene County, the state, this is the state of building regulations, West Jefferson, Clark County, and Fairborn. In this, we did a couple scenarios. What would it cost to permit? What would be the average fees for different scenarios? So we took a residential scenario, building a new family house for 2,500 square feet, and we did a commercial development of 20,000 feet. And we put it through the different models that we have, and we looked at the fee comparison. On the residential, we are lower than Greene County, and on commercial, we are lower than Greene County. So in the new proposed building, the department fee schedule here with the village, to construct a 20,000 square foot commercial building will cost a little less than $2,000 compared to Greene County. On the residential side, the number, obviously, it's much lower, but it will be lower under our new proposed schedule. So that is on the fees. And I have Andrew on the line who is more than happy to talk about his experience, his team's credentials, which are amazing. There's a large team of plan reviewers and inspectors, and they're nearby that are qualified to do the work. Very important to point out that they have high remarks with the Ohio Building Standards Department, which helps our process move along because they're already certified. NIC is certified to provide services to 30 municipalities in the state. And most recently, about a year ago, they acquired Cedarville, so they're doing all commercial plan review and inspections for Cedarville, who, as of a year ago, was with Greene County. So Andrew, I'm gonna give you co-host permission here so you can unmute yourself and tell the team a little bit about you and in our collaboration.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. He said, sit there, and if anybody has a question, answer the question. But NIC's been in business for 25 years. We are physically located in Washington Township, just off 675 at Far Hills Avenue in Centerville. We cover 9 counties in Southwest Ohio. The only reason we exist is to provide good customer service because nobody needs to hire us. We exist because in a previous period, a lot of building departments were having problems with 3 days to get an inspection, 30 days to get a plan review. And we created the company in response to that market need. And our advertising is word of mouth. We have first-class staff. Our business model is set up to be customer-focused. Keep in mind, we perform a regulatory function, just like your current building department performs a regulatory function. But it's a regulatory function that can help or hinder construction, effective construction, leave people on their own to struggle, or help people, educate people how to approach the subject when homeowners want to do it yourself. Or as recently, there was a mention earlier about sustainability. One of the major changes in the building code in the last few years has been significant changes in energy-based regulations, which are designed to add higher insulation and to make new homes more energy efficient. Now, when that comes out, the state just publishes it. There's a tremendous need for education of contractors because there's 7 different ways you can meet the regulation. And if it's like, you know, reading a law textbook. So part of our function, we believe, is to educate the community into understanding why these things happen and how to achieve it. At the end of the day, we exist because we give good service to people. We exist because we understand that everybody, once a project's approved, everybody, be it the property owner, the contractor, the whoever's collecting taxes on the property, everybody's objective is really to get it built safely as quickly as possible and let the building be occupied and move on to the next thing. So our focus is customer focus. My background is with a company that, looking at the pictures on there, most people may never have heard of a company called NCR that used to have 72,000 employees when I came to Dayton. But I worked internationally in marketing, providing customer services. So that's my background. We have a squad of very professional plans examiners, building officials, inspectors, electrical inspectors, and they are all certified by the state. The one thing that we do differently is we can train people, we can keep them up to date with technology and so on. And we have regular training sessions every week. What I can't do, brilliant that I think I am, I can't change personalities. So we only hire people who fit the personality profile of an inspector that wants to go out there and help people get the work done correctly, properly, effectively, and put up safe construction. By hiring people with that personality, the technical training is pretty easy, but it avoids the issues of egos, and Inspector A says they want this, Inspector B says they want that. Everything's worked on a team basis for consistency of interpretation, and it's worked very, very well. We have a lot of happy customers. I'm happy to answer questions. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and we are really excited by the thought of helping you provide better service to the community.
Andrew, thank you. One thing I did forget to mention to the team is that based on this fee schedule, on terms of cost, we're talking about 2 things. One is, what is the final cost to the customer, which is the proposed fee schedule that's in front of council. from a administrative cost, or what is it going to cost to run the operation, it's not going to cost any additional dollars to the village. In fact, there is a fee sharing agreement with NIC, so we will retain 10% of the fee and we will pay out 90% of the fee for NIC to cover their services.
That is correct. The more volume there is, the more we get paid, the less volume, the less. But we work across a number of communities, and we work with hardcore staff, and then we have flexible staff. We have some very, very experienced inspectors who are retired from working with us, that enjoy doing a couple of days a week or a day a week if we need them, so that we can maintain the service level no matter what happens volume-wise.
So Josue, thanks for highlighting that fee arrangement. And Andrew, appreciate the background on your work, and it seems in line with our values. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes, Brian, if you don't mind. Yes, Mr. McKenzie, thank you for your time. Yeah, you may have tended towards an answer for one of my questions, and the question was, as you're already dealing with 30 different counties in the state. Once you add, Yellow Springs as a smaller municipality, how does that impact your staffing with regards to the level of customer service that you provide? Now, you did say that you have folks sort of on the bench, if you will, ready to come up at a moment's notice. So one, talk a little bit about your capacity and how you handle increased activity. And secondly, would we see like familiar faces on a regular basis? In other words, as we go through different requests for services, would it be the same folks on a regular basis that we see, or would it be someone different each time? Or is it too soon to say?
First question about capacity. Our business strategy, since we have to provide excellent service, our business strategy has always been to hire in advance of pursuing customers. So for 25 years, we've always worked with slightly more people, be they reviewers, administrative staff, whatever. We've always worked with a little bit more than we needed, so that if fortuitous circumstances, somebody said, we're in trouble, we need help, I could always say, we can start next Monday. So I don't see any difficulty whatsoever in providing great service to the village within the existing level of staffing. And sometime down the road, when an opportunity occurs, we may hire part of a person or bring somebody else in. But at the moment, particularly with COVID, our staffing is still pretty much set to the way the construction industry was in 2007. For instance, we provide service to the city of Monroe. I think maybe 2006, 2007, they had somewhere like 365 new homes built. And nowadays they may have 25, 30, 40. They had several commercial projects. Now they seem to have positioned themselves regionally as a supplier of huge warehouse space. So they have projects like the Amazon project, which was finished last year, which is huge. They have one like Kroger are putting in an all singing, all dancing robot technology center. So we have resources to deal with those sort of things as they come up. So I see no problem whatsoever with capacity. On the familiarity, we basically assign inspectors in a general geography. So the building official you will have will be the same person all the time. Now, there will be a designated backup official so that when that guy's on vacation or something, the backup building official will know what's going on and you'll know who he is. But the guy that gets the phone call at 10 o'clock at night to say the tornado, let's hope it doesn't happen, the tornado just went through town, that will be the one guy that's your primary contact as a building official.
Thank you.
The inspectors, it's a balance. 90% of the time, it'll be typically the guy that normally goes there. We consciously, from time to time and routinely, we may rotate inspectors for a week or 2 weeks. That way, we validate that we are being consistent across all the communities we serve.
Laura, it looked like you had a question or comment.
Yeah, I did. A typical scenario that comes up is that a plan is initially submitted for review, and 60 or 80% of the time it has problems that it gets sent back. And then apparently often it gets sent to the back of the review line. Probably our folks would appreciate once they're, and it seems like there's a quick turnaround, but once their plan got to the top of the pile, that somebody stayed with it to resolve the problems until that one was done instead of sending it to the back of the line. Could you comment about that?
But the state has a regulation that says plans have to be reviewed in the sequence received. And sometimes that can lead to situations that don't have any common sense. For example, if you only have the one plan reviewer and he just got a high school that is going to take him 10 days to review, then in theory, everything else will sit there for 10 days until he's done the review of the high school. Because we have four plans reviewers, if somebody gets bogged down in a 10-day plan review for a high school or a jail or something like that, then the other three guys are still rotating on the residentially. We basically try and clear everything within a 1-day period, and commercially 3 to 5 days. We have we've offered a contractual commitment of 5 to 7 business days, but our internal process is monitored to 3 to 5 days on a commercial review. The person that first lays hands on the piece of paper is accountable for that thing getting out eventually, because simple efficiency and time management, that person's already looked at the plans and knows why he couldn't approve it and knows what his expectation is. If you switch it to another plan reviewer, he's going to start from scratch and he wants to know different things. So it stays with the one person all the way through.
Thank you.
Question?
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, so this is a first reading, but Judy, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Sure. Krieger. Krieger, have I got you?
Yes.
Thanks. Stokes?
Yes.
Curlis?
Yes.
McQueen?
Yes.
Tausch?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate the info. So we're going to go into resolution 2021-33. Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is authorizing expenditure for outside counsel to review Citizen Review Board proposal.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Brianne.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. After our last meeting, council had tasked me with getting some quotes from outside counsel as far as review of the Citizen Review Board proposal. The individual who'd been recommended contacted him. He said his experience is predominantly in litigation rather than legislation. I contacted Bricker and Eckler, specifically Marie Joelle Kuzum, because she has the municipal law experience and she's also a labor and employment attorney, and their quote far exceeded the $2,000 cap that council had imposed. I also contacted Larry James, Crabb, Brown, and James, and he has actually sat on a national task force for citizen review boards. His cap, if you will, was to give the village 10 hours at a discount of $250 an hour. Bricker and Eckler's would be discounted to $425 an hour. So with that in mind, I would recommend that council entertain the proposal from Crabb, Brown, and James for outside counsel and allow the village manager to execute any contracts necessary for that outside counsel review for the Citizen Review Board proposal.
And Brianne, is that the recommendation we got from Ellis Jacobs?
Mr. Marshall, Foreman Marshall, was the recommendation from Ellis Jacobs.
Okay.
He's also in Columbus. And I mean, I could share a screen with you, but, you know, right now, COVID's been a little bit of a factor, but average attorney rates for employment and labor law attorneys are running anywhere from $300 an hour billable hours to $500 an hour billable hours. So when you're looking at it from an employment law specialist aspect, that's one thing to consider in terms of the $2,000 expenditure versus a $5,000 expenditure.
Okay. All right. I have a few comments, but are there any other comments or questions related to this resolution?
Well, I have a comment. So this isn't just a review without legislature involvement, because the goal here is to bring to the floor of council legislation that hopefully could be passed.
Correct.
And yeah, so I mean, it's one thing, I think it's fairly, it's not going to meet at least, I think the subcommittee's goal, or certainly my goal, to sponsor legislation here if myself and I think Lisa is the one that makes the most sense to be involved, that we're working with this outside counsel to find out what the issues are, the problems, maybe what can be done to change, and then ultimately arrive at an ordinance. Well, I think it would be an ordinance. That's one of the questions. But anyway, I hope we get to work with this person to reach that goal.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to add anything?
Sure, yes, I do. I'm really grateful for the legwork that's gone into bringing this tonight. You know, I've been saying for a while that I don't think it makes any sense to discuss the current proposal at any more length until we have this review. So, you know, because I think there's a lot of questions and uncertainty for various stakeholders who are on this call and in the community. And so this is so important. So I'm hoping that this passes tonight and that we can move forward with this in a collaborative process as Laura suggests. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments?
I have one, Brian.
Yeah.
We had reviewed the availability of the funds, and so we certified the funds prior to this meeting.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Okay, so I'll just highlight a few things. I was a little bit concerned to discover that the proposal that was included in the council meeting packet 2 weeks ago, and it's in right now, was a proposal where some pages were added that were not approved by the 365 project. So one of the things I want to make sure about is that some of the editorializing that I raised some concerns about 2 meetings ago, I don't want that to be submitted to the attorney that's reviewing this. So I confirmed with 365 Projects the proposal from May that they reviewed that did not include the extra 3 pages about getting rid of dispatch and other things that were added by Laura. I don't want those to be a confusing factor in this mix. And so I guess my approval of this is going to be contingent on providing, I guess, what has been sanctioned by 365 Project. I think the other piece of this, I want to continue to emphasize that this has been an ongoing discussion where Lisa and Marianne were initially involved in working with the mediation program to see how that could work. We have evolved this project, through the Justice System Task Force and also the Justice System Collaborative Committee to, really look at what makes sense for the community. And I'm very concerned about this proposal being tainted by a few folks who want to make this proposal maybe something that has not been approved by the community. So that being said, I just want to make sure that what is presented to the legal review is not involving, some of these other editorializing like comments. And again, I looked at this with Judy. It looks like what was proposed to the 365 Project in May does not involve an extra 3 pages. And so I don't want those to be included in the review. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Brian. So people were asked to submit questions, and we got a lot of great questions, particularly from one 365 member. Mm-hmm. And I offered to have people answer the. I think most of it is fine. I think you're having a heartburn about one comment. The question was, how are we going to pay for this? And of course, cost-cutting measures or right-sizing the police budget or reconfiguring things might have to happen if this is a community priority. We often legislate as if there's a spigot that we turn on and money comes out and it is never ending. So that simply is not a suggestion, a vision, or anything else. And it was a proposal 10 years ago or so when I was village manager, sharing services with Xenia, where all of our 911 calls are dispatched. That might make sense to reimagine what policing and the police budget might look like. Now, that's clearly one opinion. And I think all the questions that were asked I took them verbatim, are good questions that anyone should consider, no matter who's answering it. And I think most of the answers that were given by the committee, was reviewed. It was reviewed again by 365. And Brian, I'm sorry you left me out of that conversation, by the way, because it was reviewed twice by 365. In any event, I think it's fine as is. Look, any lawyer can take it with a grain of salt. These are his questions or one suggestion. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen or should happen or any such thing. So, Brian, I think you just got to take it for what it is and not get so defensive about it.
Okay. So I think that makes me think even more that I want to make a motion that what we submit for legal review is what the 365 project looked at, which does not include those extra 3 pages. So I'm going to make a motion about that before we move forward with the resolution. So is there a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? Well, Judy, let's call the roll.
Yes. Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
No.
Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
I'm just trying to find my timeline because Brian, the timeline is in the proposal. And I think it was there the second time. I'm just saying, I don't know where you got this information, but I'm voting no, of course. Thank you.
Okay.
And Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you. That did pass 3-2.
Okay.
So I have a clarifying question though, because I do think 365 reviewed it more than once.
Yeah.
So as long as we have a paper trail that shows what 365 reviewed, then we're good to go with whichever version. And that's why I voted yes. So I think it's fine to be clear, but I think we should figure out what 365 actually reviewed.
It's in the timeline. It's in Exhibit F is in the timeline in May, and they got it again on 6/14. Look at the timeline.
Well, I mean, I will just say, like, I clarified with them, what they approved was in May, 6/14 was like post-dated. And I don't believe the editorializing around, like, you know, getting rid of our dispatch was part of that approval. So, but anyway, Judy, I think we're ready to vote on the resolution.
Okay. McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I want to say I'm really excited about this moving forward. I again want to thank all the folks that have been supporting this. There has not been any failed attempts at moving forward with a community review board. But I think what has happened is that we've done a very intentional look at what's going to make a difference for the community. And I thank everybody that supported that. All right, so we're going to move into resolution 2021-34, title only, please.
This is authorizing the village manager to submit an NTIA broadband application for a $4 million grant request.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Josue.
Hi, Brian. Thank you. I received a couple questions from Laura last week on this broadband project. We had initially scheduled a full-on broadband presentation in the September meeting because we've been talking about municipal broadband for, God, I feel like 2 years now. I know it's been on my goal sheets for 2 years, and we've been slowly. I know it's taking a while. We've been here 2 years and been pushing on it. It's slowly we're moving forward on broadband. We're now on to phase 3 of what is a 4-phase project. So we initially started just with Wi-Fi, and then we expanded fiber to our most vulnerable residents living in multifamily buildings in the village. So we expanded that, and now we're at phase 3 where we've secured an incredible opportunity with Broadband Ohio for $300,000 to connect a little over 300 homes. And we got notice that there's this urgent or quick turnaround time for a federal money that we would be eligible for. And so we didn't want to miss the opportunity. We wanted to put something together off proposals that we've been drafting, or documentation we've been gathering for what has been over a year now since we started formally launching the program. Anyway, so this opportunity, or what you're approving for tonight, is for us to basically throw a name in a hat for federal funding that we may or may not get. One of the approaches that we've taken in the administration is go after every dollar that we can. And boy, have we've been lucky. We've gotten almost $4 million in just pursuing grant opportunities. And some of it has been that, we go in thinking, well, we may not have a shot, but it's worth a shot, because the only way you get an opportunity is by applying to it and pursuing those. So this is one of those opportunities. They came up. We're going to take a shot. We may get lucky. We may be good. We may get it, but we will know unless we apply. So we rather be bold and pursue all these opportunities than to miss the opportunities altogether. So the federal government has made funding available for communities that are underserved from their internet service providers. We qualify under the eligibility guidelines. So there are two key elements to it. A partnership, and this is language included in the resolution, a partnership that provides internet service. The partnership, in our case, what we fall under is an entity, a municipality that isn't already established but has the capacity to provide internet service. So that's us. We, the village, as a government, don't have a municipal enterprise in providing direct service yet, but we have the capacity. We are privileged to have one of the few information technology centers in VECA. And if you read the article last week that Megan Bachman wrote for the YS News, we've been able to retain VECA, and they're moving to a larger facility to meet their needs as they're expanding. They provide internet services and data services, not just to our local schools, but other local governments. So we're sitting on a great community resource that we partner with to deliver in-home internet service to the entire village. So this $4 million would allow us to build out what is essentially the entire network, because the pro forma shows that for $3 million, we can build out broadband to every home in the village. So we will pursue a $4 million opportunity. There's some cost adjustments that we need to make, but for $4 million, we can build it. So what does it mean for the village if we acquire this? It means we get to build it out on grant dollar. Initially, when the SpringsNet folks, which are all online here tonight, they've been working on this for 6 years. And their pro forma, they contemplated financing most of the build out, actually the entire amount to build out. We are in a great position as a result of our work on securing the $300,000. That reduces the overall cost because we got $300,000. So there's less to finance. If we get this grant money, there's even less to finance. So it's a great opportunity. I don't want to miss it. I know that there's concern about municipal broadband or even having this service. I'm concerned because we've been working at it for what is almost 2 years now and made had significant strides. So we hope the opportunity to apply for this, and hopefully we'll get it. Scott, Tim, and Thor on the line. Anything you want to add to this? Let me allow you to unmute here. All right, Scott and Tim, you're able to unmute, and I'll unmute Thor here. Where's Thor?
All set.
All right, I can hear you. Did I miss anything? You guys been working on this for over 6 years now.
Yes, it's been a long haul, yes. But it's a worthy effort. And we're really excited about the potential opportunity to help a municipality develop its own internet utility. And thanks for the kind words about MVECA. We're happy to be here. We're really excited about our upgrades and in the way of facilities. So we think it's going to mean a lot for the region and a lot for the village of Yellow Springs. So I'm perhaps here to answer questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Thor. And I was mentioning to Brian earlier today that we'll have a full-on presentation with all the bells and whistles when we introduce the ordinance for a municipal broadband enterprise.
Yeah, I would, this is Tim Barhorst, a village citizen. And I would like to add my support to this resolution. I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm really hopeful about it. Even if we don't get it, I think we got to still find ways to finance this endeavor. For those of you that have read Susan Crawford's book called Fiber, I've waded through most of it and was reading a little bit before the meeting tonight. She talks about a study the Federal Reserve did in 2017. The finding was that economic growth alone does not lead to opportunity or fairness. But the author suggested arcs of growth and arcs of opportunity, places that successfully connect these arcs, ensure that the benefits of downtown redevelopment and recruitment of new high-tech businesses reach low-income and minority residents. And that will emerge as an inclusive, prosperous locality that in the long term is a better place for everyone to live. And last mile fiber, which is what we're doing here, should be part of this intentional connection. By itself, fiber won't fix the staggering interlocking problems of inequality that America confronts. But without fiber, we stand little chance of taking on the inequality at all. And if we do not address inequality, we risk a future of liberal democracy in which responsible, self-governing people are committed to everyone's individual freedom. I strongly believe those words, and I think it's vitally important we distribute fiber to every household and business in the village. And I'm available to answer questions like Thor said as well. So if anybody has any particulars they want to know about.
Tim, I don't have a question, but I really appreciate what you've just said. I think it's so critical, the equity issue. So thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Kevin Stokes. I do have well, go ahead. Lisa, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, real quick, Josue, the resolution mentions 1,800 households. I presume that's about where we are right now. But are we, is it too soon to even consider the potential new homes in the overdevelopment? Or are you tied to just working with the number of households that you have currently?
We tied it to the number of physical structures we have in the village. We'll adjust it for some numbers because we also need to include and do an estimate on the total multifamily units. So we'll increase that number by an acceptable margin. I think, we won't say we'll serve 5,000 locations. We don't have 5,000, but we have about 1,800 locations. And within those locations are multi-units.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, I also really appreciate this. I've been involved in this conversation to one degree or another since I first came onto culture, our Economic Sustainability Commission, when I first came onto council. So I really am grateful for the expertise represented in this. But I do think it's important that we keep it separate. But tonight, we're not voting on whether or not we establish a utility. I believe we're just authorizing the village manager to submit an application. And that even if we do that application, and even if we are successful in getting that grant, we still have time as a council and as a community to consider the implications, the broader implications. And I feel like we're getting those two things mixed up. I support the authorization to apply for this grant and then to continue the conversation about the utility.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Laura? Oh, you need to be off mute.
The reason I submitted all my questions, including things like, what if people don't pay their bills? When do we cut them off? What are your three biggest concerns as to what could go wrong? What do we expect the cost to be to the customer? How many people do you need to take it on? and not go with a competitor to make this viable. These are all a business plan. And why does this matter now? Does anyone think that if we get $4 million that we're going to turn it down? I think the answer is no. We'll be having a broadband utility. So what I would like to everybody, and I'm happy to vote for it on the understanding that if we don't have a viable business plan, and I know you've got a pro forma, you've tried to answer these questions, but it's really not, I haven't seen what looks like an actual business plan. This is an enterprise. It's an enterprise fund. We have to run it like a business. So we need to see a business plan as to how this will run. By the way, including a survey of the 300 households that have had it now for what, at least a handful of months. Are they happy? Would they go with it again? What would they pay for it? Like, we have no data on that, at least that I'm aware of. So I'm happy to vote with it on the understanding that if we do this business plan and it doesn't look like a viable business or too risky for us, that council, that certainly you'll be bringing legislation to accept grant funds, and they might actually get turned down if it doesn't look like we can pull this off. I mean, it's a big lift. We're starting another business in our utility department. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, may I?
Yes.
I think those are excellent questions, and many of which I think you said we try to answer. Many of them we have answered. And the SpringsNet folks, not only did they run a full pro forma, but they actually took it to a lender and they got vetted. And I don't know how much the team wants to weigh in on there, but the business plan has been pitched to Port Authority, and it's fundable, which, you know, if a lending authority is willing to lend you money, they're taking on the risk to give you money on a business plan that they think that they can recoup their money back. So yeah, you're right, Laura. We need whatever we put forward needs to be sustainable, and we certainly intend to bring the enterprise forward and be sustainable. Our pro forma that we presented the summary, I think maybe a month or so ago, it outlined the numbers. It's a $3 million cost to build. It'll cost $4 million in total, includes debt obligation. And over the 20-year period, it will contribute $14 million in revenue. When you factor in all the operating costs, which the team here has done a great job, we've done a great job on factoring all the costs, technical support, bandwidth, equipment upgrades, you name it, we've contemplated and even took on some risk scenarios on how much clientele we will need to make this successful. So we've done it. We're happy. We're more than happy to bring back to council a full-fledged plan, business plan like we had intended to. We're happy to answer all the difficult questions. We're happy to entertain all the naysayers or any skeptics, because we think not only do we have a viable business plan, we are in a critical need for improved broadband infrastructure. We have seen what the result of weak systems and poor systems can do to our community. We've seen it for the pandemic. The economic landscape of the village is changing, and so this is critical to the economic success of the village. And further, we've heard things about equity. There's also net neutrality, and there's so many other benefits that we will bring to the table that no other commercial internet service provider can bring. Scott, I see your hand up.
Yes. This is Lisa. For the interest of time, can we focus tonight on the resolution at hand, which is not about that? The resolution at hand is about Resolution 2021-34. And in other conversations, we can go into more depth about the utility discussion, please, in the interest of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I will say, though, I agree with Laura that, I mean, this is ultimately like moving us towards the utility. But that being said, I think the case has been made. And I want to make sure that those documents are available to everybody. But I would agree, Scott, unless you have anything that you think is particularly salient, I think we're gonna vote this up. But Scott, did you want to say anything?
The only thing I would add that perhaps hasn't been said is that my reading of the RFP for the grant leads me to believe that we may not be eligible to even apply unless we become an enterprise. Now, that doesn't mean we have to have delivered any service or done or spent any money, but I would obviously turn that over to more expert heads than mine, but I do think that it's a necessary prerequisite for us to go forward, that we at least establish an enterprise, whether we throw it into business, turn the lights on or not. I would encourage you to please do what you can to move forward with this. In light of the last 18 months, I think it's especially important. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so Judy, let's call the roll.
Yes. Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
I'm going to vote yes, but thank you, Scott, for your comment.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do resolution 2021-35, title only, please.
Yes, this is authorizing the village manager to submit a water and grant application.
All right, can I get a motion?
So move second.
Okay. Judy, did you get the?
I have McQueen Curlis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Josue.
Thank you, Brian. I provided an update to council on the opportunity that the WINE made available for water and wastewater infrastructure. This is, again, one of those projects that just comes about very quickly, and we have to have shovel-ready proposals ready to go. This one's due on the 20th, so it's due in 4 days. But the team, we already have the cost estimates. We're looking at changing galvanized water lines that are in the village, with some with potential lead fittings. So this is certainly much critical, needed infrastructure improvements. It comes out to the tune of $1.2 million, and Johnny is on the line, who has more technical information on this. Johnny, did I miss anything?
This is a grant that we actually submitted to the EPA that we never heard back on, but it is to get rid of all the 2-inch water lines. In a meeting today, they're treating the galvanized as if they was lead lines. So we're hoping that this gets through the infrastructure bill so we can get this replaced. The 2-inch lines that we have left affect 35 customers. So we would be replacing the 2-inch water lines with 6-inch ductile and updating the fire hydrants in those areas.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? So is there any match for this? The county engineer has put out a statement that they will be supportive of anyone who doesn't have any match contributions. For us, if there is a match required, I think we have capital funds that we could reallocate to make any necessary contributions. Johnny, did I miss anything?
Right now, we're going to submit a Josue with no match because the House Bill 168 is not requiring it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Any other questions? All right, Judy, let's call the roll.
Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution 2021-36, title only again, please.
This is authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract with National Inspection Corporation for building inspection and permitting services.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Josue.
Brian, thank you. You heard from Andrew McKenzie from NIC. That would be our primary contact for all official building services with NIC. I'm looking for him on the screen, but I think we lost him here. But yeah, we think it's a great service that we've negotiated for a community. We've got on contract commitment to turn around plan reviews within 5 to 7 days. You heard about their process. They're getting residential a lot in 1 day, commercial plan review in 3 days. So we think this is a significant improvement over what is existing right now in the county. On cost-wise, our scenario plans that we ran through on cost, it's going to be lower than what the county has. And Greene County, Clark County, and Fairborn, the only one that has an advantage over us will be West Jefferson, which you've heard me talk about how successful their business model is and their volume of clients that they're serving. So I think we have a really good service here. The other piece on the records management, they're going to integrate into the iWork system, which is great from us from a process perspective because it's all centralized in what is already our existing GIS system. So now not only will be able to track work done and different assets that we own, but we're also GISing all the addresses in the village with our mapping software and our ticketing system. So we'll be able to track all permits issued to a particular home, regardless of a property owner. From a records management perspective, it will have these files online and readily available. So I think this is of the numerous firms that we interviewed and we look to develop a partnership. This is our recommendation. It's what we think is the best fit for the village. Johnny, did I miss anything? Or Denise?
I think you covered it.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. Judy, let's call the roll.
Yes, Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And finally, we have Resolution 2021-37, title only again.
Yeah, this is permitting elected village officials to buy into village employee health care.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Laura.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in creating this legislation and I'm not sponsoring it. And at this point, I'm unhappy that I tried to start a discussion and working on this in December. And a lot of the information in the packet should have been forthcoming in the first quarter of 2021. So at this point, there's no point in this legislation really at the moment. I think I want to, and so I'm withdrawing any support. Certainly, it's something that I was interested in working on, thinking about and bringing, and I didn't have any hand in drafting this, so I'm not going to sponsor it. Thank you.
I
Okay.
have a question.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I'm thinking about is the whole cycle of, including potential elected officials in the pool, the actuarial pool, which requires information, right? And then coming up with accurate cost information. So I understand from the documentation that there's a cost exposure, but I would guess from my payer experience that until we build out an actuarial pool with a potential insurer, with actual human beings that have a certain profile, that we won't really know what the cost implications are. So rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it would help me to know what the cycle is, like when do we start to build that bid pool, and if this is something we want to do moving forward, what would be the timing on that to get that data in to get an accurate cost estimate?
Our renewal plans take effect in May. So if we're going out to the market, we start to collect information and to put out to the market at 60 days prior to a renewal period. That 60 days allows any potential bidders to review the data, the health data, and look at our claims and loss history for them to be able to provide a bid. So that needs to happen 60 days prior to the renewal period. We typically start working on it around January. So in January, we put out, at least the last 2 cycles that I've been involved, we asked for a renewal quote from our current provider. And to get a renewal quote, we don't need to collect any health information because they already have all the health information from the employees, and they have all the information they need to be able to provide a renewal quote. So in January, based on that renewal quote that we get, we make a determination, do we want to go out to the market or not? For the last 2 cycles, we went out to the market because we saw higher than expected premium increases. So we wanted to see what else was out there. And we ended up with the same provider out of those 2 cycles. So we put in the additional work to see what was out there. So from a timeline perspective, we start this in January with initial renewal quote. If we have concerns about the premium increase or any adjustments to the health plan, we try to go out to the market at least 60 days out to our renewal period.
So we missed the window for 2021, but we're in a timely window to consider this for 2022.
For a May 2022 cycle, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, the other issue is that you've got elected officials that are on staggered terms. And according to the charter of the village, health insurance inclusion in a pool is a thing of value. Therefore, because of the way the charter is structured, you have to do it at least 60 days before the next general election. So if council was going to act on this, it would be tonight because September 7th would be less than 60 days before November 2nd. So council cannot vote itself a benefit like inclusion in health insurance. It has to be taking effect next term. And that's the reason it was structured as an alternate. You could have everyone taking effect at one time, or you can have it during those terms because those terms are staggered.
So tonight, thank you, Brianne. So tonight we'd make the decision whether to proceed with this, yes or no. And if yes, then in the next cycle starting in January, we would start to consider the cost implications. And am I correct to say that at that point we could go out to bid to the market or to our current insurer to say we wanted to see 2 prices, one including elected officials and one not?
We would have to go to a new plan. Our current plan would not accept council members. So we would have to go out of our existing MIWA group and consider another group or another consortium. Brianne and I discussed this, that there may be a consortium out there for small municipalities like us, but we are not engaged conversations with a different MIWA group or a different risk pool.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Judy, let's call the roll then.
Right. Stokes.
I'm not sure what to say after Laura's comments, but I'll say yes.
Okay. Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
No.
McQueen.
Yes.
House.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
I would ask, since this is going forward, that staff also provide a comparison with what the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System is doing for pre-Medicare retirees, which is they're going to the federal marketplace, and there's a consultant's report in my materials that is very favorably reports on that, and I think it is a viable option for us to look at. Beside the same old way we've always done it, is to look at some of these other options. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're moving into citizen concerns.
Brian, before you do that, my question is going to be for council. Do you want to do it for 2022 for, again, the staggered terms for the elected officials who will be coming in? Or do you want to do it for everyone in 2024?
Well, I think what's clear about the resolution is we need to understand the increase in cost. So what we have, I think, said yes to is exploring what it would mean to be in another pool. And so we haven't like committed to doing this otherwise. I mean, to me, I think what all council members understood was that the like contingency was not if it increases costs. So what this has done is, I think, added like a additional need to explore what those options look like. Does that make sense?
That's what I understood, Brian. So when I go to the marketplace in January, I will be going to our current pool, and I would look to another risk pool to also request a bid from.
Right.
We'll figure out the enrollment or the membership participation, because in the current MIWA, we have to be a member of the SOQA association. So if we need to become a member temporarily to even get a quote, then we'll do that just to be part of we might end up being members of multiple risk pools just to get pricing, but we'll pursue pricing from different pools.
Yep.
And just to clarify, if in fact the option were to be exercised for 2022, Brianna, am I correct that neither Krieger nor McQueen could participate in that option?
That is absolutely correct. And that's why Section 1 is drafted as an alternate, because you've got 4 elected officials with terms expiring December 31st, 2021, and 2 council members with current terms expiring December 31st, 2023. So the alternate is for everyone to take effect for calendar year 2024, if you want it consistent for everyone.
Well, let's think of this vote as a signal that we want to look at what it would mean to be in that different pool. And then we can figure out the staggering, or whatnot. That's the way I would look at it. So,
well, you do have to decide which section you're approving, whether it's the alternate Section 1 or the first Section 1. The first one says you're going to wait until all public officials would be eligible. The second one says we'll start as soon as it would be feasible for incoming elected officials.
So the alternate says we would wait for everybody.
Sorry.
Do we really have to do another vote on that?
Again, it's
okay.
Entirely up to council, but the charter says it has to be done 60 days before the election.
Well, I would.
This is Lisa. One of the things I'm trying to move this discussion away from is being about an individual's needs.
Right.
What I want for me, right? That's not what this is about for me. This is about moving forward with a consideration of a benefit that might be meaningful in the future for council members. And so that's why I'm feeling very strongly that this is a good thing, even if it means that, and Marianne, I can't speak for you, but if it means for me that I'm not eligible in the first cycle, that's fine. But we're getting into a cadence that could have a benefit that I believe could lead a broader group of people to want to run for council in the future. It's not about us as individuals, because we're all going to pass through. This is about the good of the order, and that's why I support this.
Right. So I guess if we need to clarify, my vote was on the implement as soon as possible, not everybody waiting. And it sounds like that was what Lisa's vote was. So I don't know if we need to like poll, maybe we should poll everybody else. But mine was not on the alternate, but on the, new people.
Section 1 as drafted, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's check in with everybody on that. Like, Marianne, what was your vote about?
I understood this to be as Lisa explained.
Okay. Kevin?
Yep, I understood it to be implementing as soon as possible, but Lisa and Marianne would not be eligible that first time through.
Okay. Is that clear enough, Brianne?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to move into citizen concerns. This is the time on the agenda where we accept comments no more than 3 minutes on anything not on the agenda. Do we have any citizen concerns? Okay, I see John Hempfling. Go ahead and mic on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm John Hempling. I've been working with that just a very small amount on zoning, talking about, how to improve the local zoning code. Matt is a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. He wrote a letter to the editor about very generally how his views of how the zoning code could be improved without mentioning any specific properties. I think, in general, participating in that sort of discussion of how to improve local policies beneficial is something that council benefits from, as well as the community. And Solicitor Parcels emailed Matt saying that, quote, if you would prefer to be a vocal advocate for changes to the zoning code you are charged with applying as a BZA member, that creates an inherent conflict of interest. Please keep this in mind before you make additional public statements. As your letter indicates, you intend to speak to council about the matter on August 16th, and we have a BZA meeting scheduled by Zoom tomorrow. Matt actually was too busy, or he opted not to speak at this meeting. But he said it was okay, but I spoke. So my understanding of conflict of interest law is that it really only comes into play if Matt had some kind of material interest. Parcels also mentioned that BZA members can only take into consideration matters that are presented to them, in BZA meetings. So I think that maybe she was trying to suggest that, that he could be accused of judicial bias if he took something outside of that into account. But I'm fairly certain that judicial bias only applies if you're biased relative to specific parties involved. But since his letter didn't mention any particular individuals or properties, and just his general views of the law, it couldn't be a basis for an accusation of judicial bias. Is from what I've read, I believe that's accurate. So I just wondered if council felt prepared to declare the meaning of the law and sort of their view of whether BZA members can make public statements in the newspaper or to council regarding how the zoning code could be improved. That's all.
Thanks, John. You just hit 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Brianne, do you want to comment on that?
Absolutely. The issue, Mr. Hempfling, is that when you make a statement as a BZA member and an advocate for changes to the code you are tasked with applying, it calls into question your objectivity. The entirety of the village has 2 training sessions set up with the Ohio Ethics Commission on August 20th Mr. Raska has been in communication with me since his letter to the editor. And I believe that the Ohio Ethics Commission is always going to say, when you have a question about conflicts of interest, ask your solicitor. And again, the issue is the BZA is held to a higher standard because it is a quasi-judicial body. Matt is free to have his own opinion, of course, as is every other BZA member, every other planning commission member, every other member of our legislative body. But when you are vested as an appointed official with certain responsibilities, then it is somewhat problematic from a legal standpoint to engage in an advocate's role, because the Ohio Ethics Code does not just prohibit material conflicts of interest, it prohibits action when your objectivity is impaired, when you're acting in a quasi-judicial role. You have ex parte contacts with applicants and a whole host of other issues that Susan Willicke will be covering during her presentations on August 20th. And that's all I have to say on the matter tonight.
Okay, Mitzi.
Hi, my name's Mitzi Miller, and I'm just going to read a statement that I wrote. We as a village have a long-term issue with sidewalks repair and determining the direction and the responsibility of others in this process. We can set aside more funds for sidewalk repair and replacement in our upcoming budget and determine the sidewalks most in need of repair or replacement for the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists in our village. Right now, we have an opportunity to address our ordinances. When someone makes a formal complaint, I feel we need an employee that can follow up on the complaint, verify it, then notify the residents or businesses in an official manner, maybe a door reminder or a letter. This will also involve researching ownership of the lot or property, follow up to make sure that the issues have been resolved, documentation, and helping provide resources if needed or legal action being taken. I also would like to see grasses like prairie or ornamental grasses, lawn grasses and weeds, vines, large hills of lumps of grass addressed in our ordinances, since they all impact safe travel and accessibility issues for pedestrians. The width of our sidewalks should be clear from obstructions, so pedestrians of all kinds have a safer route to travel and don't have to use the streets. This is for the goodness of our village, I feel. I also feel that it would be beneficial if the village would put an article on the website or the paper, also reinforcing and educating our residents and businesses about the importance of this issue. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mitzi. Yeah, I will add to, I know Mitzi had all village council members tour our sidewalks. And there are some issues. I would love to talk more, Josue, about what things we might do. I know Mitzi and I started just pulling up the grass that was blocking the sidewalk. And I don't know what we can do as a village, or, if we can, rally troops like our, students who need community service hours. But yeah, I'd love to talk more about that. So thank you, Mitzi. Any other citizen concerns? Okay, so I think we have a special report from Matt Dillon, our finance director.
All right, Brian, are you with me?
We are.
All right, had a little trouble unmuting there. But yeah, no, I'd like to take you through the second quarter financials for 2021. And if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen.
Please do.
Okay, are you looking at the front page of my report here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure we were all looking at the same thing. So as of the second quarter for 2021, we actually have an ending unobligated cash balance of $6.5 million. This represents a roughly $1 million increase of unobligated cash resulting from a reduction in encumbrances since the first quarter. So we've reduced encumbrances by almost $1 million while taking in revenues which exceed expenses for this time throughout the year in 2021. So halfway through the year, our revenues are exceeding our expenses, and up through June, our revenues are actually $6.9 million for all funds. We forecasted around $6.3 million at this point of the year. So we're exceeding the expectations. And if you look at the graph here to the right on the revenue analysis, you'll see the orange bar represents our forecast, whereas the blue represents our revenues, which have exceeded the orange bar. So these are generally good news for our all funds position. For expenses, we have also our actual to date are under budget by approximately $600,000, $600,000 to $700,000. And you'll see here on the orange bar that we are, for an all funds standpoint, actually under our budget for this point in the year. And we're looking to keep it that way going into year end. And in the bank report, what this shows here at the bottom of the screen is just where our funds sit in which bank. And then with the general and the payroll account, I would just like to remind you, we have a sweep account, which we use to generate interest from our working cash balances. So that would explain the what appears as a negative balance for the payroll, but in actuality is due to the sweep account. In consideration of the funds at an individual level, expenses to date, we are paying attention to each fund, and so we're doing fund analysis at each level and looking at these pretty tightly. The general fund has expensed 60.28% at 50% of the year. This does include payments that we might have prepaid for the entire year, and I can tell you that we usually prepay for a lot of our services, so those would have been paid up front. So this is somewhat typical, but also we want to pay attention going down in the third and fourth quarter and monitor these expenses to make sure that we don't exceed our budget. That and the water operating fund is also exceeding the percentage that we would have expected it to for this point of the year. Water operating fund is at 53.91%, and the reason is just like that there's costs up on that fund in particular, and those are related to distribution of the water. So the water distribution has high costs at this time of the year. In regards to revenue, this is really the good story here to tell here is that our revenue funds in the general fund, we've taken in 57%, in excess of 57% at halfway through the year. So we're actually projected to exceed our revenue expectations in the general fund, as well as several other really key funds in our fund accounts here. There are two real funds that we're going to pay attention to is the electric operating fund and the water operating fund, just to ensure that we're meeting our revenues. I can tell you that the reason that they are down at this point is related to overall consumer fees and tap fees as well. So we will pay attention to those and work towards meeting our budget goals by year end. And that I've also included the expense report, a full revenue report, a full statement of cash balances, and a bank report for your review as well. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
All right, thanks, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Okay, and
I would just like to ask, so Matt, your projection for the year-end balance, do you have any thoughts, given what we're seeing in the first half of the year?
Oops. Yes, I do. Generally, just in a couple areas, I can say that we're paying real close attention to is property taxes and income tax. We're up pretty generously on both of those, which impact the general fund. And without going too far, I don't want to make an end projection on what we could do for the year. But for the property taxes in particular, we were budgeting to take in around $600,000 at halfway through the year. And they're upwards of $900,000 just in property taxes. And that's due to the countywide increases to values, as well as the income tax has been really generous so far this year. So we're trending. I hope to pull in, right now we've budgeted $3.2 million. I'd love to see that at around $3.6 or $3.8 million for the general fund. But we'll keep tabs on that, and we'll be sure to make sure that we don't overestimate those revenue goals.
okay, any other questions? And I will just comment that that increase in property tax had nothing to do with the village. That was the county. Okay.
Correct, Brian. One thing I would add that on property taxes, we're in a fixed rate levies. So we get a fixed amount that 8.4 effective millage. What I mentioned related to what Matt said on the income taxes, we were pleasantly surprised to see an increase in our last distribution for the month of June. We were expected to see around 130 to 150, and we actually saw 200,000 in a 1 month distribution from income tax. So things are trending upward on income taxes. Means more people are working and more jobs being created in the village.
Right. And we know we know some of those jobs are at Cresco.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Just that we need a motion to approve the second quarter financials.
Yes. Okay. So we can.
I move that we approve the second quarter financials.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. So we are into old business. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened on Monday and where we're at with COVID. Josue.
Thank you, Brian. Since the emergency, local emergency was declared, we've done a lot of things around the messaging. We actually Philip's been instrumental in updating the signage, and we've got it all out, got new signage out to the businesses downtown. The police department helped in this. They also were out there delivering masks. So I've got a quick update on a few other things. So I'll share my screen now. All right. You should be able to see my screen now. So since the pandemic, we updated our signage downtown. We've got a new over the street banner that's been ordered. It's in, so we expect to get that up between tomorrow and Wednesday. We just became aware of a potential electric emergency this evening for tomorrow morning. So we're working on the schedule overnight, and we'll convene in the morning to see how bad the emergency will be on the electric system. So just that's not even hot off the press. It's still a working press announcement. On Friday, the police officers delivered masks to the downtown businesses. As of today, and if you recall last week, we said we will wait until Monday to put out any information, because whatever information we run on the day of will be at least 2 days behind, just based on how the data collection and the reporting is being done. So as of today, using data from August 8th through August 14th, the county remains at a high level of community transmission. Not just the county, but most of the state is in a high community transmission state. So if you look at the map on the screen, you'll see that there are only 6 counties in Ohio that are in that substantial risk category. Everyone else is in the red high risk category. So the trends don't look great overall. The entire state is in a community transmission, high community transmission rate. So a lot to be worried about. Vaccination rates look to be doing well on the percentage of population that's 65 years and older. 90% of it, 90.7% have received at least 1 dose. 85.5% is fully vaccinated. You know, that's been among the most vulnerable group. The 18 years and older are showing good numbers as well, with 67.8% received 1 dose and 62.2% being fully vaccinated. So I think the numbers around doses are starting to trend in the direction that we want to see. These are the vaccination rates, the 7-day averages on the different points that the CDC is tracking. So you've got cases. We've seen an increase in cases over the last 7 days, which we expected. That's when Delta took a huge significant hold in the community transmission. So we expected to see those case numbers increase. So the data is reflecting on that. The other numbers around recent positivity with 1% increase, number of beds being utilized, only 1.4% increase on the ICU beds. That number's gone down. Obviously, testing volume's gone up by 34% in the last 7 days. We expected that with the more COVID exposures. One of the things that council requested was for police chief and fire chief and I meet to talk about occupancy. We did meet, we looked at the regulations, looked at the recommendations, and the recommendation from the team is to leave the occupancy standard as it is. And because many of the businesses have already improved their quality, and we anticipate high mask wearing within indoors. What we are making available to the businesses, if they are interested in adjusting their occupancy rate or space, we are more than happy to provide consultation. Particularly fire chief has made himself available to any business who looks to implement occupancy reduction in their business, and not just the occupancy reduction, but any additional barriers or plexiglass or other measures that they're interested in implementing. So that is the COVID update. On one thing I forgot to mention: the COVID testing, the rapid testing, is still available at the library, so that remains in place. We had folks reach out to us and asking about rapid testing. Will we bring back the clinics? And our response is that with the availability of the COVID testing and how easy they are to use them and the speed in which the results are delivered, the COVID test available at the public library remain the most cost-effective measure in place right now.
All right, thanks, Josue. Do we have questions or comments?
I have a couple questions. What will the street banner say?
Wear it, protecting each other. I have a graphic. Give me a couple seconds, I can pull it up.
So just to be clear, when people are outside and they can socially distance, they're not required to wear a mask. And are we actually requiring and enforcing outdoor mask wearing?
The ordinance is clear. Yes, we are requiring a mask. We have Chief was online, and I guess he can speak about enforcement mechanism. I have not had the conversation today about current complaints for mask wearing. I know I did receive anecdotal information about the challenge at the Art on the Lawn. Chief, do you want to jump in on the any complaints or enforcement?
Yes, thank you, Josue. We are familiar with this process, as you know. I'm hoping to keep this on a complaint-driven basis. because officers would be inundated on regular foot patrols. We will be offering masks to folks as we are out on foot patrol. So that is kind of our plan. I'd like to primarily focus on aiding the businesses that have issues. They are welcome to call us anytime rather than to put themselves in that situation, and we will respond instantly and accordingly.
Thank you, Brian. And Laura, here's the graphic. This is what the banner will look like. It'll be up within the next couple of days, depending on our power emergency tomorrow. Another thing that you remind me is around the mask requirements. We had put out the press release in consideration of what the CDC guidelines are. And the CDC guidelines recommend anyone ages 2 years and older should wear a mask. There's a discrepancy between the CDC guideline and what our ordinance it puts an exemption for, and our ordinance puts an exemption for 10-year-olds and younger. So I think there's a discrepancy there that we need to adjust. I think council's intention was to stay in line with the CDC guidelines and the health authority guidelines. So that's something that we either need to correct it on the public announcements, or council will reconsider adjusting the ordinance exemptions.
Well, the ordinance is what the ordinance is. And it's only, again, we're talking about an ordinance, which means people could get a ticket, not what's recommended by the CDC, what's wise, what people ought to be doing. So that's one thing. The second thing is the ordinance also says you don't have to wear a mask outside if you're socially distanced.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So the banner's a little misleading, I mean, because people will see that and then they'll think I have to wear a mask all the time, every time in downtown, when that's not really, it's very nuanced, right? What people should be doing or what the ordinance requires or forbids. Then the last thing is, right, as I understand it before, with family groups, like I don't want the mom carrying the 4-year-old who's not masked to get a ticket. And why? Because they're a family group, right? So we weren't enforcing masking with family groups that were walking together.
Okay, well, I don't believe anyone's ever gotten a ticket. So better safe than sorry. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I will say I'm, based on time, I don't want to drill down on, some of the other things that we said we will talk about, like what the threshold is tonight. But I think that will be on our agenda for the next council meeting. But as it stands, I think it's pretty clear that these protocols make sense right now. But go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree, because this situation is getting increasingly worse. So we will need to set thresholds once we start to turn the corner, if not before. But the numbers are trending up dramatically. So I don't think we're putting off a decision for too long. Yeah.
No, I want us to talk about this. Just, I guess we're already 30 minutes past. But we will definitely come back to it. Okay, so I want to thank the village team for mobilizing quickly, and I think our community has appreciated it. And I just want to emphasize that nobody knows what this Delta variant's going to do. So none of us should be speaking to the science because it's constantly a moving target. All right, so we're going to move into new business, and we're going to talk a little bit about our 2022 goals. So the way I want to structure this is I'm going to share my screen. I sort of pulled out things that I think we have done already in 2021. And I know there's a document that we'll make sure is in the next packet that highlights the color coding. But I guess in particular, I think this is a good opportunity for council members to talk about their priorities. And one of the things I want to emphasize is that I think it's really important that we start to think about funding for these initiatives. So I added that into the last column to start thinking about grants and other opportunities for making these things happen. But also what I did was ultimately just take 2021, pull out things that I think we've done, leave things that I think we still care about, but I'm curious to hear what the thoughts are. And at a subsequent meeting, if we want to review what we've done in 2021 with those goals, we can. But we also know there's been some limitations to what we can do. So I'm going to start with council members on this. And I don't know, Kevin, do you want to talk about what you're thinking about with priorities first?
Sure. I haven't had a lot of time to review this particular, well, the document that I'm looking at. I don't know if it's different than what you have on the screen, but it's what Judy said sometime today. And I was traveling today and didn't get home to about 5. But in general, certainly the affordable community, which certainly has a lot of things packed in it. It's almost like a balancing act with making it affordable. You have to spend or invest in one side of the equation so that things balance on the other side. And I hope the magic of supply and demand comes into play with the new housing that's developed in the near future to help again relieve some of the pressure on the spiraling costs of housing. So I definitely support that. And that seems to blend into the idea of the residential development. There's been a lot of talk about zoning changes. I don't really, I guess that question I think needs to get a lot of conversation down the road. I don't know if there's a simple answer, but as a resident in a residential A area, I would be supportive, of some apartment buildings or multi-family dwellings in the neighborhood in which I live. So that's certainly one thing that might address that. When you look at repair and maintain infrastructure, I was excited to hear about the changes in the piping throughout the village, taking out those 2-inch pipes and replacing them with larger pipes. That definitely sounds like a step in the right direction, and I think the village team has been doing a great job in that. And then I'll just skip on down to village vitality, again, which almost is another one of those things that has a lot of points at which things can be done. I accidentally skipped over social justice. I'm certainly concerned about that. And I'm not leaving things out to say that I'm not interested in them, just sort of trying to prioritize and maybe pick off those general goal areas that are probably in my upper tier if I were to divide all of them into thirds. And so I've just spoken to the things that I would say are in the top 1/3 of those things that I'm interested in and will be actively involved in helping to implement.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Kevin. Laura, what are your thoughts?
Well, so many of these I support. I think I would shift emphasis on a couple of them. I would support, for example, residential development. I think our biggest needs are market rate apartments and senior condos, not necessarily low income, to provide options for people to, as they age in place, that they're aging in a place they would prefer to take care of that's smaller, not maybe the house they raise their family in. I think those are priorities. I mean, continuing with affordable options is terrific, but I think we're missing, I think the elephant in the room, it's the market rate, moderate income level that we don't have. I've been saying for a long, long time on infrastructure, I'm happy that the administration is really focusing on improving infrastructure. That pleases me to no end. I still want council to be in charge of the traffic control map if we're going to make changes in the control elements of it. And then stormwater needs some more attention. Down to, I think there's a category I would add to this list, and that is governance. And a lot of my deep, deep concerns over my tenure in the last 2 years has been about the imbalance of power as I see it. The people are the people, we respond to the people, the voters, right? And the legislature is responsible mainly for three things: budget, policy, and law, making the law, legislation. And when legislators aren't in charge of those things, I get real nervous, because that means I'm being asked to rubber stamp somebody else's law. I think every law that's brought to the table of council should have one or two legislative sponsors, that it's they who say, this is the legislation I'm proposing, not from some other source. And I think I've argued this from the day I hit the floor of council, that we need council committees to oversee on a department basis or a topic basis, things like a finance and audit committee. We just had a state audit. We got an audit report. The audit committee or the finance committee should review that and implement any recommendations. We don't have a mechanism for doing that. I know we have a records commission, but we don't really have involvement of legislators to make sure some of those things are happening. A sewer and water committee, a public safety committee for, again, budget, policy, and legislation. Those three things are what council people are charged with doing in our role in this government. So I think governance is out of balance, and I would like to change that and add that whole category. On environmental, I would just shift a couple of emphases. Like, I really, we got away from the push for residential solar. And I think I'd like to, first of all, evaluate people's experience. And is it worth doing like round 2 or round 3 of a collective purchase of a buyer's cooperative? Should we be doing that instead of focusing on village solar initiatives? I think if and when the day comes when VIII, that property is available, perfect place for a big solar facility, because it's going to be not as appropriate for residential. And then I would, on development, preserve and protect our most valuable natural resources, no limiting greenfield development. I would really focus on infill. And I think we have plenty of that. And I would really focus on infill development. So those are some of the things. And then on personnel, I really think, again, I've said it about 5 times, that council should be the one reviewing the classification and positions plan. And this all ties into, I'm also a believer in cost control, cost cutting, not spending money we don't have to, in ways that make sense and that are smart. And I think it's never been a priority. As a matter of fact, I think past village managers have been punished if they talked about cost sharing services. saving the taxpayers money. Those have been poisonous words to a lot of people. And I just think there are common sense ways we can do it that I'd like to make that like a goal for the village manager. So these are some of the things that I've thought about in the last 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Mary Ann.
I'd like to start with how I would like to see us do the planning. First, I appreciate that we're talking about 2022 now rather than into 2022. And I also want to acknowledge Josue for making that point that we do that. And so what I would like to suggest is, well, I really appreciate what everyone has said so far that I've heard, Laura and Kevin. It's helpful for me to be able to read what people are thinking about. And so I would like to suggest that we each take some time to look through 2021 and what Brian has put for 2022 and write comments, especially things that we want to see increased and our ideas of how that might happen, why we think it's important and how that might happen. One thing that is frustrating for me about being on council is that I don't think we have as much time as I would like to have robust policy conversations. The degree that we can be able to step back and do that, I appreciate it. So first thing, write down our ideas, start doing that in the next couple weeks. 2, I'd like to find out what staff is planning and get that information as soon as possible. And then 3, I would like to schedule a retreat for council and I guess the head reports for staff to really work to have more time to talk about what we want to have for evaluating 2021 goals, talk about what we want to have for 2022, and have time to talk about other issues. What's working well in council, what's not, what's working well vis-a-vis council and staff, or whatever it is that seem to be issues, and at least a half-a-day retreat. So specific issues that are important to me, I would concur with Laura. I think in terms of housing, rental housing, and I would also agree market rate, especially what's now being called the missing middle, which is either small apartment buildings or duplexes, triplexes, accessory dwelling units. I am very interested in having robust discussion about what other communities are starting to do in regard to changing zoning so it's less restrictive, more inclusive. I really want to see the village commit to ongoingly community action and sustainability planning and funding that. And I'm very interested in pushing active transportation in all of the ways and that might be, whether encouraging bikes, working on sidewalks, working on making sure that people can actually walk on the sidewalks or the streets or whatever. So right now, those are the things that I would have to say.
All right. Thanks, Mary Ann. Lisa.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I also resonate with a lot of the comments that have already been made. You asked what we were personally interested in, and those things that I am actively working on reflect my interests, my primary interests, and that is the work on the Development Incorporation, which crosses some of these goals and actions. My work on social justice issues, including the exploration of the Citizen Review Board, and also the fairly diverse work of the Art and Culture Commission that I think fits into that maintain village vitality. I see art and culture activities are there, and I'm also very interested in the notion of having an overall park and green space plan. Green space is just not a bunch of grass to mow. There's a lot of intentionality that we could have around our green space that would be part of maintaining village vitality. I believe that it's very important for us to stay focused on the basics. And what I mean by that is repairs and maintenance and infrastructure, the vitality of our utilities, the efficiency of our teams, and the efficiency of this council. And I don't know if I'm glad to see that there's a finance committee proposal here too. I think that we have an opportunity to think a little bit about how commissions or committees could be envisioned and restructured to keep kind of spread the wealth in terms of focus on work that needs to be done across the Council of Five and the village team. I worry that we overload the village team, and I worry that there isn't always workload equity among the council. And as we come up against an election cycle where it's maybe possible that there will be people who haven't served on the council before, I think it's all the more important to create organizing structures that help us to all be efficient with our time. I also, I think folks know, I've always been really interested in participatory budgeting. So to Marianne's point, I think it's great that we're talking about this now. I'm not even sure it's early enough to be talking about it for participatory budgeting, but I think I would love to see us dip our toe into that sooner rather than later. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Great feedback. Yeah, I'm just gonna add, I'll just highlight three things. One is it's become apparent to Josue and I that parking is a priority issue for our downtown businesses. And so as much as I feel that's a third rail kind of issue, I want to figure that out. I want to talk about that more. I'm really interested in a lot of the comments around engagement with the community on a variety of levels, participatory budgeting and other things. And then, yeah, I think our priority needs to be the basics, infrastructure, readiness for economic development, residential development and whatnot. So I think, and I know, Josue, that you are prepared to provide a lot of details, which we're not going to do tonight. But what I think we can do for the next meeting is I'm going to reflect on the comments I've heard, talk with Josue, work on this document a little bit more. Because really what I did with this, what I've got on the screen is I took 2021, took out the things that I think we've done, left the things in that I think matter. And I think we need to, and work on that a little bit more. But I'd love to have a more in-depth conversation, and certainly we're going to need to have a retreat about this. And I think doing that sooner rather than later. We've never talked about, the goals for the following year before the following year. So I think starting to reflect on this is a good first step. Yeah, I think this is a good point to just wrap this up, because I think we need to also kind of get done with our meeting. So good initial conversation. I will just re-emphasize that I think how we fund these initiatives, we all need to drill down on. And so I'm going to throw that out, for all of us that have initiatives that we want to see happen, that we start to think about where that funding is going to come from. I think we've been pretty good at reacting to that. I'd like us to be more proactive about it. So that's a thought I'm going to leave us all with. Okay, so I am going to let Josue talk a little bit about the encounter data piece, and then Josue, you can move into your manager's report after that.
All right, thank you, Brian. I appreciate many of your comments around the goals because they're related to what I'm presenting on the encounter data. These are social justice has been a key topic for council during my tenure here, and so the police data has been one of those projects that Lisa Krieger has been pioneering and moving us forward, and we made some significant strides. We've been slow to get there, but we are getting there. I think from where we have been in the past, it's an improvement. So I'm going to share my presentation because I've got a couple slides to present here. So one of the big updates that I have on the police encounter data is, and Lisa, I know it's taken us a long time, is the piece around the survey. One of the key elements of being able to measure the police engagement is doing the customer service engagement. We spent a lot of energy on drafting that survey. The survey is done. We needed to get to this second phase, which is putting it in a business card, something that we could distribute. So this is what Andy from the team put together, the business card. So this is what it will look like. The business card or the screen on the left is the front, and the screen, sorry, not the screen, but the box on the left is the front of the business card. The box on the right is the back of the business card. And if you were to take your phone up to the screen and scan that QR code, that's a live code. So when we envision this will be a way to have a way for constituents, customers, residents, anyone who's having an encounter with an officer to provide some feedback on that interaction. And we want to do it in a way that it was accessible. So the QR code it will link back to, in this case, Brian Carlson, and individual officers will have the business card with a code that is unique to that officer. So in this case, this one's Brian Carlson. So this is an update to what we've done around the encounter data. The business card will be rolling that out in the coming weeks. So by the next council meeting, we'll have an update on the cars being produced and put into the hands of officers. So that car is up. The other piece that we've done around the accountability element of our public safety apparatus is the evaluation form. We had some conversations with council, the JSCC. We had some feedback from some residents that were deeply involved in the process. So we've updated our performance evaluation to measure things that we were not measuring in the previous tool, and that includes fitness, and it's more goal-oriented. So I think we've shared a template of that. I'm happy to get it into the next council packet. So those are two big updates we've done. Now I'll get into the data. We also did some improvements on the data capturing, and Chief may be online still, and he can weigh in on some of the statistics. But overall, one of the things that this council has asked for is more engagement in a way that's in person, not related to specific incidents. So that led to more foot patrol being increased. Brian, you thanked the police early today with the bike going out. That's part of that. Foot patrol, getting folks more into the community. So we are having a lot more extra patrols, foot patrols, and bike patrols. So to date, from January 1 to now, we've had 410 foot patrols. taking place. Here's where we're tracking them on a map. Obviously, that line for August is all the way down, but it's going to increase as we move closer to the end of the month. But this is the distribution of the foot patrols, and bike patrols will be part of this as well. Here, we also tracking it by individual. Who is leading who's doing the foot patrol? Who's getting out there? I think it's important from the accountability perspective to look at our officers and who's engaged in that. So you see Unit 17, that's Doug Andrus. Doug's a high achiever in this area with close to 120 foot patrols, and I think that's who you might have seen today, Brian, with the bike. He's on it. I really appreciate Doug for all his hard work. Obviously, we still got some work to do, but among the other officers is fairly distributed amongst the team. So that's the breakdown of that data. These are the locations of where we're doing the foot patrol. So we're also tracking where we're having more local community engagement. Obviously, Day and Street, as you see, it's a large one. The dark blue one is Day and Street, Walnut, Xenia and Short Street. So these are the areas where we're tracking the locations as well. We're also made some improvements on the traffic stops. One of the things that we were not capturing was the demographic information such as race. I know there were some concerns about the use of race, but it's an important element to understand and be able to to look at any trends, any discrepancies in the data. So of those data, since we started implementing this race field in the deposition, applicable deposition, we've got 34. We still need some more work to do around the demographic information, but of the limited stops we do and the limited data we have, this is the breakdown of the numbers, breakdown by race. So white male is the largest share, followed by black male adult, which is the orange, and then the white female adult on the lower quadrant. Black female adult on the smaller shaded blue. So information we're also tracking residents status, what's non-resident and resident. This is the current breakdown of the demographic information. So we made improvement on this area. Chief, did I miss anything?
Sorry about that. No, the only thing that we have to hone in on is traffic stops where there's a verbal warning. Those dispositions aren't recorded. I've noticed that's one of the reasons the numbers, we weren't 100%. I do want to mention publicly and thank Dispatcher Andy Karen for his assistance in extracting the data and creating what I would call a simple method to produce these statistics for the public. I'd like to be able to produce these one per council meeting, and we can watch the changes together. If you have any questions, though, I'm happy to answer them right now.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Lisa. So I have a couple of questions, and I'll just ask them both and let you respond. But first I want to say thank you, because I really have felt that this encounter data project is a really important one, and I'm really glad to see it moving forward. And I know that it has been a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you to the whole team for your work on this, and to council for supporting it. Here's my two questions, and neither of them are new issues, as we've discussed the encounter data. The first question has to do with a community communication plan. So I'm just wondering, I know this team is great at communication plans and social media and all that. So I just was hoping that there's a robust plan to help our community members to understand that we're doing this and why. The second question is a little bit more tricky. We have in the past talked about how to create incentives and encouragements for our officers to make sure and pass out the cards. And that it's going to be tricky to know if a person is passing out cards to every encounter they have, that doesn't mean the person will respond. And so a low response rate for a given individual might not mean anything more than that the person who is experiencing the encounter just throws it in the back of their car and doesn't respond, versus having perhaps officers who choose not to pass out the encounter cards. And I know we talked about ways to follow up, and that was tricky. Follow up with people who had encounters to try to encourage them to respond. So I'm just wondering where we are with that challenge.
Okay, regarding your first question, communication, community. So part of the Ohio Collaborative is pushing police departments, requiring us to produce up-to-date, in-the-moment statistics regarding information. News and media outlets are notified of critical incident. I think we're all hoping that our web presence can increase. So I'd like to see for now on the police pages an update on statistics, when it's established, a confidential contact to the CRB, and those things. But to be quite blunt, that particular portion of what I've been working on is in a standstill right now. But it is on the menu. Regarding the encounter data cards, I'd like to have a more in-depth conversation about how we roll this out, whether it be just traffic stops or whether it be encounters. I think that you can see from some of the statistics that the police encounters from a foot patrol standpoint are all from a positive standpoint. So I'm not sure if there would be specific things that we would require regarding the surveys, or if we would want to do it for any encounter that an officer can give the card out to. So those are questions that I still have, and maybe we can have a separate conversation about that once we get these printed and we're in the works. And I think there'll be some things to work out of it. Just making sure everyone has the correct card, each officer, and the protocol, which we can mandate specifically for traffic stops, because there's usually some kind of interaction in the moment and something on paper. We try to do all of our traffic stops with written warnings, but sometimes we do verbal warnings. It gets people on their way and out of there real quickly once we've just looked at the identification. I hope that answers your questions, Lisa.
It does, and I'm glad to continue the dialogue on this, and this might be a good, as far as the implementation scale, this might be something that would be worth reconvening the Justice System Advisory to have a conversation about and get some input.
Absolutely, I welcome that.
I'd like to make.
Sorry, go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment and thanks to the police department. It happened that I was one evening recently walking up Fairfield Pike, and I saw a police car stopped with a person that they'd stopped someone. And so we were walking up behind. The officer could not see us, so did not know that I was walking up. And I witnessed the interaction between the officer and the person in the car. And they were laughing and clearly, and the person was given a warning, but it was clear that it was a very positive interaction. And, the officer certainly did not know that I was walking up behind him while this was going on. And I was so impressed. And I'm pretty sure that the person who he had stopped was not a resident, it was someone from out of town. But I really appreciated seeing that happen and just wanted to express my appreciation.
That's great. Okay. Great update, and looking forward to talking more about this. All right, Josue, anything you want to briefly highlight related to the manager's report?
Oh, Brian, I have a few, but I'll stick to what is an emerging challenge ahead of us for tomorrow. We just learned this afternoon that we might have a bad power line on the Whitehall area of the village. So we'll know more in the morning, but it may lead to a power outage. We don't know. We'll know when the team's on site in the morning. And but that's something that, with any power outage, you're bound to hear of it. So expect a few calls, maybe, hopefully not. The other thing too that I want to thank Mitzi for her comments earlier. We issued 30 door knockers over the last 2 weeks. I was labeled the lawn cop as a result of it, but I would not shy away from that new title. We continue to do the work that is complaint driven, and it's much to the improvement of the safety and transit of some of our most vulnerable residents using the sidewalk, folks on strollers, walkers, and wheelchairs. So we resolved some of those challenges. We have a lot more complaints. We received of over 50 locations for complaints. So the workload on this is going to increase, and I expect that you will hear more about our enforcement and follow-up on these complaints. That aside, we've had wonderful community engagement. We had the Touch a Truck, a few other events. So those are going well. We also had a big water loss improvement system. We had, you heard me earlier at the beginning of the year, we talked about having an assessment of our water loss. So we were able to contract a team to use sonar technology. There's a nice picture in your package of Jeff quieting everyone on the street so he can listen for leaks. So that should resolve to over 119 gallons of water loss per day. So big improvements on water loss. I was happy to hear all the comments on the 2020 goals. As you know, efficiency, organizational efficiency and productivity is a main goal of ours, and we have demonstrated our capacity to get things done with regards to infrastructure. Last year, we did significant improvements on infiltration and inflow. This year, this last 2 weeks, we made significant improvement on water loss. And we just continue our track record on making these improvements, and also security money. So big improvements on cost management and increasing our access to funds, unlike other administrations in the past. So I'm proud of my team's accomplishment, and we look forward to continuing that track record. Now I'm open to questions, given the time.
Any questions for Josue? Marianne? Do you have a question?
Well, I have an observation and a reminder, I guess, or I can just do it. But I walked over to the glass farm today, and I intentionally walked to look at the culvert that flows under Dayton Street to see whether the water level was down. And it definitely appeared to be down from what it normally would be, especially given the amount of rain that we've had. So I anticipate that water leak, as I think, Josue, you had said, that there was the thought that at least some of that water was flowing into that culvert, and that seems to have made a difference.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Marianne, for reminding me that. So we've been worried about the loss of water retention capacity at the glass farm, and we might have solved that by fixing this water leak, because a lot of that water is expected to go down there. So thank you. And while we're talking about glass farm, you also reminded me of Power Clean Ohio. There's a consortium in Ohio that we want to join to make the progress that we made around climate action and other sustainability efforts. So Council, we would like to come back with a resolution next council meeting to join the PCFO, which is Power Clean for Better Ohio group, which provides technical assistance and resources on climate action initiatives. There was a report over the weekend that I got through some of it. An international team did new simulation models on the reverting the effects of climate action and what's possible. So they did a lot of computer simulations, and the scientists around the world have concluded that yes, we still have an opportunity to stop climate change. So part of the climate action and sustainability plan that we're doing and the work around the administration, such as our water loss, future solar production, inner grid, or a key component of that. And I think that we should be joining this association for a cleaner Ohio to leverage the resources that they bring. So that's something we'd like to bring to the table next council meeting. I have a few updates also, Brian, on the task list that you and I had gone back on the action item. Being short staffed as we are here, we didn't get an opportunity to create a new format for this, but we are tracking the list of the action item, and they included the encounter data with which discussed. There's the motorcycle noise and mitigation tactic that's on the radar that Brian and I went back and forth. The street vendor and musician policies, I've reached out to Rita. There's concern about the vendors not paying their share of income taxes and sales taxes on items. And speaking with Rita, we identify a flaw in our ordinances, which exempts the registration from vendors who make and sell their own wares. Currently, we're treating anyone who sells a ware or makes and sell their own ware, but has products from other folks as one and the same. And the best practice is just to require registration for everyone. And if we choose to waive the fees, then that's a separate component, but we're able to track vendor registrations on which we can then later run income tax reports to see if, to make sure that tax reporting compliance, that they are filing taxes and are meeting the tax reporting requirements. We did follow up with the Planning Commission and Council meeting. Judy's sending out notifications about what are potential meeting times. So that's in the works. Lodging tax reporting. If you read through Matt's reports on the second quarter reports, updated lodging tax is included in there. Happy to come back with council just on the report on lodging taxes, so we can look at those numbers versus the 100 pages of financial information that we presented today. Parking, that Brian addressed this earlier, parking remains a key issue, despite the position that council took at the comprehensive land use plan around the parking concepts. Downtown businesses are still making an issue of parking. They're a little more organized on this matter now. So I think this is not an issue that is going away, and we should be looking to address it right away. Performance evaluations for PD, we updated that. It's also on the goal sheets to adapt more of a Corco approach to evaluations, which is how I'm evaluated, and I introduced that topic with the managers. We will be looking at that in future performance evaluation tool updates. I think that's the action list.
I have one more thing. It's in the minutes of the last meeting. You had asked the Art and Culture Commission to engage in some strategy work around banners.
Yes.
And Art and Culture Commission didn't meet in August. We took a month off, but we're meeting in September. And I'd like to just follow up on the request that it would help us to have some, logistics, cost, time to move the banners and stuff. I don't want us to come up with something that isn't operationally or financially feasible. So anything that you and the team could get to Art and to meet, or Judy to get to Art and Culture Commission to consider in advance of launching that conversation would be helpful. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for the reminder, Lisa. We did start the work on that, and Johnny and I will follow up.
Anything else for Josue? All right, great report. Thank you, Josue. All right, let's talk about future agenda items and get out of here. So what do we got?
I have a question. What would be on the agenda for a planning commission and council joint meeting?
Good question. So Judy, do you want to talk about some of the things that we potentially flag?
Yeah, one would be just a question and answer period with the solicitor so that people can specifically ask, okay, well, here's why I joined this commission. Am I allowed to advocate for that? Why am I not? Can I comment on this plan that's coming before council? Can I not? Can I talk to a council person about it if I'm on planning commission? All that stuff that we often assume people should know or have educated themselves about, but maybe nuanced enough that folks don't have a ready answer to. So there was that also regarding what's the process for PUD? Who does what, when? What does that timeline look like? What does it mean for planning commission members? And what does it mean if planning commission votes one way and then hands it off to council? Just getting some of those things out in the open and discussed jointly. And that's not a complete list, but that was, I think, the starting point.
Yeah, I think the third thing I would highlight, but we would love input, is some of these areas where there's a feeling that there's a lack of criteria or direction. So I'd really like to drill down on what that looks like, and where council and PC can be more in sync. And then the last thing, I guess this is more like directed towards council, is I think we need to better understand the process or I guess the role that planning commission plays. Because I think we step over each other oftentimes, and we need to figure that out more. So, but I will say that everyone on council and planning commission is welcome to contribute to what that agenda looks like. So, yeah, and just as a side note, Josue referred to it. We had a nice meeting earlier today. I was involved, Frank, Judy, Brianne, Josue, to just kind of like feel out some of the issues. And so, so we want to, flesh that out. Okay. Anything else related to future agenda items?
Well, you guys alluded to setting thresholds for masking. Did you want to relook at any pertinent ordinance with?
Yes.
Starting.
Yes.
Okay. Retreat date and time potentially to discuss a resolution to join the PCFO. And then, Josue, I don't know if you were asking for an ordinance to add vendors to be required to register, all vendors to be required to register to file with the Village of Yellow Springs, but that will require an ordinance, I'm assuming. Do you want that for next meeting?
It's an ordinance adjustment. I don't know when council's interest would be to revisit that. I know that the Arts and Culture Commission was looking at vendor and busking opportunities or challenges. I don't know how we want to frame it. So I don't know if bringing it back to council at the next meeting would be appropriate given the other discussions around vendors and buskers happening. So I don't know, I think that would be a question for council members, how to line it all up, since it's not just a straightforward. It can be as straightforward as requiring registration for everyone, and then we revisit the fee waiver. That way, anyone who's selling things in the downtown will be able to evaluate if taxes are being paid.
Does this include all vendors, like during street fair, if it's a 1 or 2 day a year, do we have to do that?
We do it for solicitors that come in for a day and maybe doing door knocking. So yeah, I think that's part of the discussion. What does council want to see us address the vendor issue?
I would love to have a finance committee get into the weeds about this. This is why our council meetings are so long, because we don't have these committees to really delve into this. You know, do we do it for every single vendor, even if they come in here for a day?
I think it's separate from the finance committee as you have proposed it, Laura.
It could be within the scope.
I think this is looking at, there was a in fact, a complaint, Brian, if I understood it correctly, that brick and mortar businesses were concerned about vendors who were set up on private property or sidewalks that were selling comparable products to what the brick and mortars were selling. And there was a concern of taxes not being paid similar to the brick and mortar places. So, you know, we from a finance perspective don't collect any sales tax. The sales tax doesn't come to us. We collect on the income tax. So there's a variety of different taxes that a business would pay that will be separate from village finances. So this is particularly following up on a complaint and concern about vendors competing with brick and mortar places.
I'm going to request that we wrap up the meeting because we still have an executive session and
I have
10 o'clock.
May I just have one more thing, and that is related to solid waste fees or cost adjustment for solid waste kits in the summer months for next year. And I would like for council to consider making an adjustment to the solid waste fees to include the spring cleanup. So the way the ordinance has been written for many years is that the spring cleanup was to be offered at a fee that would be assessed in addition to the monthly cost for solid waste. I would like to bring to council of making a fee adjustment that ensures that we're able to provide the spring cleanup at no additional assessment. It's already included in the fee. And also I would like to take it a step further. I've heard great news from a local organization that has acquired a license for waste food composting. And I would like us to consider a pilot project that is funded through our solid waste fees to allow for the collection of food waste at the farmers market that takes place here every Saturday. So something to consider, that it could be covered through a solid waste fee adjustment. For rate, I'm thinking no more than a $1 adjustment for the entire.
You're talking about bringing an ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you. Got it.
And I have one more thing. We did get notice that the state audit was completed, and it seems like that we should report to the public on that. Maybe we have, but I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we can release a statement, and with the link, Laura, I think you had expressed some concerns about the audit, and we're happy to have the conversation with the audit or with the council or anyone. We'll send out a link on the report. Each council member should have received it, but we'll resend it and provide opportunities for discussion.
Yeah. The other thing to consider on that is we have not had our exit interview with the auditors, but right. I was speaking to Matt about that because it could be something that if council members want to observe or attend, we haven't even got it scheduled. It usually is in September, October timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, that all sounds good. And I'll take that feedback and we'll deal with those issues. So I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of what, Judy?
The appointment and employment of a village official.
So moved.
Second.
That was McQueen. Tausch.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So
how do we want to do the breakout room?
I will do 2 breakout rooms. One will be the executive session with council, Judy, Brianne, myself, and then there'll be another room for the public. So hold on tight while I transfer us all through space here.
And just for the newspaper's purposes, there will be no action taken, no vote taken coming out of this executive session.
Room.
I move we adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Waiting on Brian Hausch to come back.
Judy, you're muted.
Yeah, we from the room, we couldn't have left the meeting, or could Brian have left the meeting from the room?
Yes, that's possible.
I don't know,
but
we have a quorum to adjourn.
Oh, well.
So we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Okay, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, we've already got that. We got Frolis and Krieger, so just go ahead and give me a yay or a nay.
Yay.
Hey.
You got it.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.